Shishra, are you able to hear me?
Loud and clear. I can hear you.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. This is an expert insights on project lifecycle and organization. This session is designed to prepare you for the UiPath Apps Academic Challenge 2024. My name is Abhijit Srinivas. I am a senior program manager for the UiPath Academic Alliance program. I'm delighted to start this webinar and be your co-host for today's session. First, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all the students who have registered for the challenge. Your enthusiasm and commitment to learn automation is truly inspiring. We are honored to have ICT Academy collaborating with us for this event. They play a very pivotal role in enhancing the skills and knowledge of students across various fields, and their support is invaluable in making initiatives like this successful. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker for today, who's Shishra from HP, Shishra Mishra. Shishra is not only a initiatives like this successful. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker for today, who's can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, so Shishra is not only a renowned expert in the field of automation, but also UiPath MVP is recognized for his exceptional contributions and expertise in the UiPath community and UiPath products and platform. So with his vast experience and deep understanding of the automation project lifecycle and project organization, Shishra will provide you with insights and knowledge you need to excel in this UiPath Apps Academic Challenge 2024. Before we dive into this session, I would like to remind everyone that UiPath's Apps Academic Challenge 2024 is a fantastic opportunity to showcase your innovation and problem-solving skills using UiPath apps to address real-world challenges through technology. Your participation demonstrates a proactive approach to learning and a commitment to advancing your career in automation. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Shishira. Shishira, thank you for being here today and sharing your expertise with us. The floor is all yours.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you for the warm welcome, Abhijit. And yeah, to the great event, what is happening here. I can see the number of participants and the rightly called out the enthusiasm from the team to learn, do something with the world of automation. Definitely, it's going to be impactful for their career while they are taking to the next level in their student journey, right? So, with that, so today's topic is very interesting. Let me start sharing my screen and I will walk you through with details. Load the presentation. Okay, I mean, let me know once you're able to see.
Yeah, I can see your screen, Shishira.
Amazing. So we will learn team here UiPath project organization. So key topic what we will end of the session we are going to learn is we will start with automation lifecycle to understand what generally the journey of automation when it comes for automation project from a development side, because there are end-to-end life cycle is different. Well, I'll try to focus most of my content towards development. How do the development life cycle looks like, and how do you really organize your project with certain layout approach, templatize, compatibility stuff, a lot of best practices. We will see certain things in action, certain things in the concept. So yeah, a lot in the store today. I'm sure by end of the day, you will be able to get back. How do you really organize a project? How you really start a project to a industry ready or which can be scalable? Okay. So automation, I'm sure it may not be new for everybody, but just to give an introduction about what exactly RPA you are doing. Robotic process automation is primarily you are creating software robot to mimic human action, right? That's how we see in industry. Say there is a process which is done by user day in and day out, which is mundane in nature. you kind of creating a software robot just to replace that work. Instead of human doing the work, how do we replace that with a bot to do? And UiPath is helping us to build that tool. Now, this while you are creating this, you will come across the use cases, which is like, as a word, use the word mundane, which is repeated without having any human supervision. Like, you don't need to have a human brain to solve the problem, but you can kind of you just repeat the work, right? Let's say I'm going to a system, clicking on 2-3 steps, and then performing the work. Let's say I'm just going to Amazon website to search for a particular information about, let's say, book or some product, download the pricing and send it to my pricing team. And that is just a no-brain work. You can go to Amazon website, enter the book details, and then extract the pricing and send it back. This is work you'll keep repeating. Same activity you can replace with a software robot. That's a lot of business case will come. And when it comes for the development team, there would be some pre-works, right? Which is like identifying the use case, analyzing the value, what it can generate to the organization, and then it come back to the team to say, this is my requirement. It comes with a business requirement document, right? It's called BRD, where it is very clearly illustrated, saying, okay, this is my end-to-end flow looks like. This is where you need to go, download the information or perform some action. This is how the end-to-end journey looks like. Once you have that file, you start the development. That's the first bucket, where a developer use tool UiPath Studio to mimic the action, right? You basically creating the workflow, the various code. Here in this case, the ID will be UiPath Studio. The file you will create is XML files, XML files. So, and that files will help you, like, mostly low code interface, right? You can drag and drop various activities. We call that UiPath activities. Let's say you want to do click, search for click activity, and like perform the action where I want to click. How do I repeat the work? You can build a logic on top of it, just not drag and drop, but you can really understand the flow. Let's say you open a page is taking time to load. How do you handle it? Or maybe you open a page is asking for login. You want to get the credential and enter it. So all this can be built while you are developing it. So if the development can start from a very small scale, it can go to very large scale as well, right? So you use the tool to develop development environment. There will be a lot of concept you have to take into account is reusability. So more you start developing, you try to focus more on reducing the development time. So that way, the like time to market or implementing to production is more scalable. For example, let's say you are creating a like going back to that search module, right? Amazon website. So you don't create a search to only to a books. Let's say you created a search module. Tomorrow I create it for searching a book, but tomorrow, let's say I want to do it for another monitor or PC or any other system. So design in such a way it can accommodate to any type of search. I'm not just designing it for development, but I'm creating in such a way that it is reusable. So tomorrow, if any new or similar requirement comes from business, I just need to plug and play, right? So most of the component we try to think in terms of reusability, which will act as the input ingredient to your development time, which will improve your faster turnaround, right? So you don't need to, maybe the first time you spend 2 to 3 days to develop. When you have the module ready, you will hardly spend few hours to create it, right? Your focus is shifted. So and while you are developing it, you need to bring the concept of collaboration, the multiple team members are working together. So that is where the version control come into picture. So the platform is very robust. UiPath platform, like any other programming language or tool, you may be using TFS, GitHub, and all to source code repository. So multiple people can collaborate. You can perform check-in, check-out of your code. Same thing you can do it here as well. Right? So you can load your code to TFS or GitHub or any version control, and then source code control tool. And then whenever you are performing edit, you can check in and check out. All this action can be done. So that is how you will start with the cycle of development. Once the development is done, you need to deploy it to test environment. That's the best ALM practice, right? We develop in a lower environment using the test data set. Then we move the code to a test environment where this is not untouched to production. a couple of team members are performing user acceptance testing, right? That's called popularly UAT. So your test environment, you will be giving it, your code is ready. You're giving it to the testers to perform the testing. So they will test the word robot come into picture, which is maybe somewhere you will see that word assistant, UiPath assistant. That's where the studio job is done. You publish to orchestrator, where the robots are performing the action to show how it is working, right? So it is working fine. The orchestrator is the tool which will help you to trigger the bot, and you can take that output and validate if the output is matching to the records or not. So in order to make it successful execution, there are a lot of best practice you really need to follow in terms of exception handling. There are a couple of things we'll learn down the path. So ensure the code is designed in a way that it can be tested appropriately. It is giving meaningful information when things are not working. It's also tracing the error logs in a proper way. So all these are important when you are validating it, right? Once that is done, your code is ready, tested, then you move it to production, which is like completely deployed to a prod environment. Your business is executing this with a production real data set. So this is how your life cycle will generally flow whenever you create any project, right? Start with development, test it, production, and moreover, the backbone to entire thing is how you really develop it. Because imagine you created a solution which is going to run in an unattended mode, running somewhere in the virtual machine without you being really supervising, okay, how what's the steps are, which is running fine or not. So make it in a way that it is self-managed, independently running, where all possible exceptions can be taken care, and the bot is intelligent enough, just not performing the work and breaking it in the production. But it's exception is important. It will come. Every such run cannot be success. But the key thing is how your bot is intelligent enough to manage those problems. Right? Let's say there is error comes. If the bot is having in a scenario like is it designed in a way that it can handle that error screen. Imagine a user, right? Suppose I'm logging a page or maybe opening any Google screen or maybe Gmail account, any account. If it didn't work, let's say I load the page, it didn't work. So what will happen? It will give me error screen. That does that mean I'll close my browser and go? No. What I'll do, I'll try to reload it. Maybe I will try to reattempt, refresh, something I'll do. Same thing while you are designing the automation. Imagine for all these possible scenarios, what will happen if you are doing what you will do, same way if the bot is running the job or the automation is running, how should the bot should react? Let's say it is encountering an unexpected behavior. It's every time it cannot be same scenario it's running. During that unexpected behavior, is it really handling those scenarios? Then your bot will like the solution becomes scalable. Your project or the way you organize your project will return you in a better way, right? So that's the life cycle of the typical flow. Now let's go to the second layer in terms of okay, now that you understood the life cycle, you can imagine the backbone to this is how you really code it. We'll focus now in terms of couple of key parameters, how you really code your workflow and take care, right? So there are three workflow layouts, which is critical when you design your solution. So one is sequence, flowchart, state machine. We'll individually see what does this mean, when you should do what are the advantages and disadvantages, and how really these are used. So any workflow you create in Studio, you start with one of this, right? So whether you use sequence or flowchart or state machine, this is how they start the layout. So sequence are primarily, it's a very simple, right? You have no branching, no conditions, straight sequential steps to be executed, very clear steps to execute, no too many conditions. You can still use condition, but not a clumsy lot of conditions are there. So it's not nested with a lot of workflows, very straightforward, very simple steps to perform. Let's say I go to a screen, just click on step and perform and download an operation. There's a simple sequence of activities, right? So that way you can do it. So it's very easy to understand if you see the advantage. I have a bunch of workflow. I can see easily what's going on one after another because it's top-down approach execution. Simple logic, let's say searching an item, downloading an activity, downloading a file, sending an email. So all this you can put it into a simple sequence. The disadvantage is nesting too many conditions. So let's say you have multiple conditions to perform and you bring sequence on top of that. It's a lot of lot of conditional validation you'll do. It will become sometimes the steps can be very grown fast, and it will be too many steps to perform the action. So it's not suitable for this scenario. But yeah, for that we have other options, right? Like flowchart. This flowchart is designed to manage complex scenarios. Let's say you have multiple branching, different conditions, different flows. Like normally in your projects, you may be creating flowchart. So flowchart means what? You have a start, then you have going through various condition, you're going to various branching. It's easy to understand, create a flow diagrams. Wherever you are creating the flow diagram, same thing you can create in flowchart in UiPath as well, where you have a very clear sequence of activity, but it is a flow wise. You will have a various condition you can do. The branching is easy, and yeah, it can be nested. Very, you don't need to have multiple conditional and all. The nesting is pretty simple to define, and yeah, general workflows kind of activities will fall under this. Easy to understand, similar to like creating that diagram I mentioned in case of flow diagrams we're creating. Same way the flow chart will flow. And yeah, it's like it is very the branching is the power of the flow chart, where you can create multiple branching different operators. You can add it complex wherever there's a complex scenario. Sequence is not go to, but flow chart will be the solution for that, right? The next is state machine. Definitely not for this is for a particular purpose. It's not for solving all this sequence and flowchart what can do. It's not for that, but you need to understand where really we need to use state machines, right? So where you have a finite number of steps. Take an example, you are in a traffic light condition. You have three steps, whether you green, yellow, red, right? These are the steps. So whenever you have this finite number of states and the transition, under this condition, I will go to this activity. Under this particular state, I'll go to this step of activity. So that is where you bring the state machine, where we have no finite number of predefined state, and the transitions are the condition for those. So under one state, where you want to move like you started with the initialization state. Let's say I have initialization state where I'm saying I'm just starting, refreshing everything. My next stage is, suppose I get item, I move from initialization stage to processing stage, right? So that within that processing state, you may have two branching. Let's say after my completion, I want to end the state, I'll go to end state, or maybe I'll go pick another item called get transaction state. So this is how you design the entire architecture. Then you start building this state machine based approach. Okay, so it can be made. Suppose there is a more complex architecture, it is even more complex to bring multiple flowchart sequence together. That is the time we're trying to bring state machine easy to manage, because it can be box things, bring things together. And transition between state is easy. You really not need to define condition, because it comes built in, right? Each state machine has input state, output state, so you can design in that way. But yeah, it is complex. The maybe in initially time team may find it difficult to understand, okay, how do I really use? But state machines are useful when you really create some templates, create some frameworks. So using state machine, we have a very powerful uh, template being created, a framework being created by UiPath, which is used in industry everywhere. So when you start using like UiPath development, so one of the best practices, start using robotic enterprise framework, popularly called as RE framework. If you understood state machine, RE framework is very simple, right? Otherwise, sometimes people find, oh, it's very complex. How do I do it? But reality is very simple when you really understand how the state machine works. So, but it is also one important best practice. Whenever you're creating, initially it may find it difficult. Okay, how do I use like RE framework? My recommendation would be to always use RE framework based development, which is a built-in tool which saves a lot of time. You don't need to do a lot of activity while developing using RE framework. So I'll spend some time to explain you how RE framework works. So like I said, this is design, this is a template, this is a framework. So it's used RE framework, the state machines, right? So if you see all these states as we saw, these are all states, right? So one is init state, get transition state, processing state, and end state. So these are all state. As we learn now, this each state will have this. Well, how do you transition? So from initialization state, you need to go to get transaction state. So here, this from here to here, you see there is a line goes. That is the transition, right? From get transaction state, you go to processing state. Now from processing stage, you have various transitions. Say, okay, I want to go to get transition one transition. This is another transition. This is another transition. So what does this diagram explain is while you are you start the project, like you start the execution, it goes to initialization state. Init is the initialization state. As the name suggests, you do a lot of cleanup activity there. So always think of automation. How do you design your automation flow is while the bot is running, it should do some cleanup, right? Like closing the browser, cleaning up the like all these other applications. So maybe the login session is not done. So in order to ensure everything is reset properly, so the bot execution will work fine. So that is what the initialization stage is, where you release, clean the ecosystem, like the environment where it is going to run. It is properly set so that the actual execution can work fine. It can also clean up doesn't mean just to close, but also to initialize as well. For example, let's say there is a connection string, database being used to manage some data store and all. Suppose you have to initialize a connection string, you can do that. Or maybe you are using some parameter like username, password, or some pre-settings, URL and all. You need to save it in orchestrator so that can dynamically configure. That can be pulled in initialization stage as well. So we call these assets, closing browser, closing activities, and all these part of initialization. So this is initialization activity, right? Once the initialization is successful, means all your files are loaded, closed properly, your initialization assets are loaded correctly. So next step is it is successful. Then you go and get the transaction to do the work. Get transaction meaning, let's say I said the previous example, I want to download the book pricing report, right? That is one transaction for me. I want to, let's say I give, okay, what is the CSAP books available in Amazon? That is my transaction. I give, okay, search for CSAP books. Maybe next transaction I'll say, okay, what are the PCs in Amazon site? That's another transaction. So see this business activity, it can be like at granular level as well. As I am processing 10 invoices, each invoice is one transaction for me. I'm processing one entire document processing, that could be transaction. So you have to find what is the best way to define what is my transaction in a process, right? So once your initialization is done, get transaction is responsible to get one item for you to do the work. That's the get transaction, right? So if you see the transition, if you understood, so first is success, means it go to get transaction. Assume during your initialization itself, it encounters some issue. Let's say browser could not close, or maybe that time you could not load the asset because the orchestrator is down. That means it should not go for transaction, right? Because your file is not closed or your initialization is not successful. That's why this transition says from here to here system error, then you go to end state. So how simplified you can define here, I have two transition. If it is successful, meaning the exception is null, right? So it goes to here. Otherwise, you go to this box. Under this, each state you are defining multiple workflows, right? You're calling out, cleaning each one workflow, initializing a workflow, maybe sending an email is another workflow. So these are all different sub workflow. Bring it inside each of the state machine. That's how you did this. I just explained one part. Now you can unpack to all this transition. Let's say process transaction. Once it is successful, you go to get new transaction. This is the transition saved is for success. If there is a business rule exception, let's say you are doing the work, there is a business rule exception come, then also you should go to get a new transition because business already aware of the exception is. If the system exception, that means the system didn't work, then go to reinitializing thing. So that is how the transitions are defined. Transition is just defined with simple condition. Imagine if I have to do this without state machine, a lot of if else and all different conditions I have to do. Because it is a state machine, it has the built-in capability of transition. I can simply drag and drop, connect the states, how to move from one state to another, it will take care. And within this, each of the state, I can put my sub workflows to the work. Okay. So that's how the RE framework, now you can see how simplified this is. Just if you understood the state machine, RE framework is just piece of cake. All right. So that's about how you design from simple to complex. Let's see. So now we know how to do it while you're creating certain things to take care as well from project compatibility perspective. Now UiPath is powerful enough. Initial days, I remember when you started, it was only supporting Windows, but today we have various capability in terms of cross-platform and all. So when you are creating the project, take care about your target environment, right? Where it is going to execute, what is the nature of automation. So you can start with Windows, which is a default platform, the default environment where .NET 6 supported. You can also create cross-platform supported over Linux and all. It's not only just Windows, but Linux platform automation can be created using UiPath Studio. And also we have legacy, which is like .NET 4.6 is supported. That's the older version that's been rebranded to Windows Legacy, but new is Windows 1, right? So while you're creating the project, make sure you validate, okay, which is my target environment, where is the project compatible? Because sometimes what happens is you start with let's say Windows and you try to switch to a legacy, that might be a problem. But if you start with legacy, that can be auto converted because Studio gives you the built-in tool. So take care about while you're starting what is the project compatibility is, right? Cross-platform is a very critical and important new admin, right? So if you start using, let's say you are creating a project which is more for Linux and Mac OS operating system. So make sure you develop using cross-platform. And while you're creating the cross-platform, the backbone of the process run is activities. I was telling you, right? So you do the work, it is based on activity. Some activity may not be compatible to cross-platform, but it is keep evolving. So while while you're creating the project, just make sure you validate which activities are compatible. So cross-platform project specific activities need to use. Test the project in such a way that it is run in a target environment first, right? You just don't, maybe you're creating in Windows, but it's recommended to test in a target environment of Mac or Linux operating system, and then get the test result and tweak your code accordingly, and post that you can publish to orchestrator to use it. It's not only for this cross platform, but whenever you're creating a project, if you remember the life cycle I said, so develop it, test is critical. While you're testing, it is also critical. We test in a target environment. Let's say my project is going to run in virtual machine, then I should run it once in a virtual machine to ensure this is working fine, my selectors are correct, the project is designed to run in that particular environment appropriately, right? Same way for cross platform also you have to take care. Now I have a question. Maybe if chat window is open, you can answer this. If you understood the first part, right? So which workflow layout should be used when there is clear succession of steps without any condition? Sequence, flowchart, or state machine? Uh, let's see. I'll just wait for 10 seconds. Okay. So the answer to this is sequence. I'm sure you must have answered it. That's with that. Great. Okay. I see. Okay. Chat is disabled, but you're answering in the Q&A. All right. So that shows you are listening and you're attentive. Thank you for all the response. All right. So let's move to the second part, project organization. Now that we understood how to code, how to do all how to design our workflow. But before I go to organization, I'll show you a couple of things in the studio. Then we go to organization. Okay. So let me go to UiPath interface. I'm sure you all have studio interface by now. If not, then you can install a community version, or you have from your college, you might have some licensing, you can download it, but at the end it will look like this, right? So while you're creating a project, there are a couple of things I want you to focus is first, just not randomly create a project from here, but the one what we just learned, right? The RE framework. You see, this is a robotic enterprise framework. You don't need to sometime search, download somewhere. Things are already available in the template section. So take advantage of those, saying, okay, what are my predefined templates already given? So a bunch of templates are already given, which means these are designed for your own internal use, right? So project recently uses mobile testing, background process, attended, orchestrated process, RE framework, and these are keep evolving. So you can always download the latest version from here and start using in your project. Okay. So I will just create a simple project to walk you through that. I'll not use RE framework, but what we see the diagram there. And while you're designing this one, let's see how you start the sequence and flowchart and all. So this is where you can start with the particular sequence, flowchart, or state machine. So if you click on sequence, it give you this option, give a proper name, design the sequence. This is what the sequence is, right? So start adding your workflow. Let's say I will just say, I want to take some input. I want to put a message box. So this is the sequence of activity. Now, always choose a sequence when it is very smaller, clear logic, sequence or execution and all. Now, if you see there is no transition, right? From here, I can't just go to a third box or some kind of logic. We cannot do the flowchart kind of But that's not true when it comes for flowchart. If I create a flowchart, now it is a blank box. I have various condition here, like I can design it, I drag it here, and I have a transition. I can go to different blocks. Like you can start designing the way you want. Normally you create a flowchart, right? So you can start creating a flowchart with various loops and condition and all. So the transition is pretty easy from here to here, right? So this is how we can design the based on a particular given use case. You can start working on a flowchart. The sequence can be designed. You start with one, it goes to various steps. From one step to other step you can perform and move it, but that's not the case with the sequence. It's a sequential execution from top to bottom. Okay, now let's see states, right? So state machine. So if you create a state machine, you can add states to it, right? So you can add a state. See the state, when you're in a state, so you basically have transitions, right? You can do a transition. I want to move from one state to another state. I can define the condition. To understand this better, let's see a RE framework map. Okay, I will create a new RE framework. So creating RE framework is base project is simple. You just need to click on robotic enterprise framework. It will I just go with the default name. So you can give a proper name to this. Okay. Now, while you create this, what will happen is a bunch of reusable code, a already defined skeleton will be there. So these are all states. So this is my initialization state. Now this is a transition. If you see this, each transition has a condition, right? So system exception is nothing, means like system is not nothing, should be see not nothing, meaning it is having some data. Is not is means it is having some data. Then we'll go to here. So each of these transition has a lot of sub workflows. Like I said, okay, it is doing some assignment, taking some activities. Then you are calling another workflow as well, then doing some work. If during this activity it encounters some error, it may give the exception, right? So that exception you can pass it to system exception. Now that exception itself is become, suppose there is an error occur. Now the transitions will take care. Okay, if there is error, we go to end state. If there is no error, then go to get transaction. Right from here, you get the transaction, go to next step. So this is how the state machine is designed. When I say reusable code part of this, so if you say the framework comes with a lot of reusable activity, like maybe initialization of setting, get data items from let's say you are basically calling it to load your assets, right? So these are all can be taken care out of the box. The activities are already there to load the asset from orchestrator and all. Okay, so there are some project organization you can do. Always start with RE framework is the best practice. Now let's see some more technique of development while you are developing. What are certain things you should take care? Okay, we'll go to the next layer of best practice and project organization. So first is while you're developing, don't develop everything in one code, right? You can always do main file. I can go to one simple project. Let's say download Amazon record. Okay, and here I can start doing everything in one flow, but that's not a best practice. Like I can load the page, I can download it, send email, all this can be done in sequence. But that's from a best practice perspective, you need to see how you really modularize in it, right? So we will be learning that from our coding days as well, right? So say, okay, I do need to modularize my code. So try to break it to a meaningful sub workflows so that it is really can be reused. I'll give you an example, right? Let's say you have a send email activity. So you have to send email. So send email sometimes can be done in multiple places. First is there is some error, you have to send email. There is success, you have to send email. Maybe there is some business exception, you have to send email. So if you think from a modularized perspective, not from modularized perspective, you will just create everything at one code. So three code having three send email. But if you think from a modularized perspective, you will create one send email package, like one send email module. So all these three conditions, you just invoke that. right? That way what will happen is your code is not repeated. You have one send email which is taking care about all these things, how to send email, and it's responding, doing the, you have these arguments defined where you input output you can do, and that's why it will be reusable, right? You don't need to do 3 times same code, but one file being invoked multiple. So anytime tomorrow if you have to change anything in the same email with a different properties and all, it's just one place change. That's a simple example I give. It could be many other scenarios where you really need to, it's not just send email, you create a module. Sometimes the login is another module. Login, let's say you are creating a login page, multiple places it can be login, but your login to the entire is one particular submodule that is being invoked whenever there is a login is required. Right. So that's how you can create sub workflows. You design the flow in such a way you have multiple workflow. It's not just everything is coded at one place, but you really need to break it and start using it, like invoking it. But while you break it, it's important to maintain the parameters, the variables, right? That variable can be you send some data to it, or read some data from it, or the data is between exchange between it. This three possible scenarios are there. For example, let's go to the example of send email. While you send email, there are certain data you have to send it. That is like to whom you send the to, or to like what is the subject, what is the body of the email. That has to be passed to that module, then only it will do the work. That is called you are sending something. So data is getting received in the file that's being processed, right? To make it dynamic, you have to do it. That is how we can define through in direction. These are the direction parameters. When you create a variable, if you define this as in, meaning the file is telling when you are invoking this file, make sure you pass this variable to this, right? Then only it will execute. Like if you see, if you are coming from programming background, if you support, you create a main file, main input, args, arguments and all. That means your the function is expecting some input to it. Same way, here you create a YAML file. If your direction is in, it's expecting some parameter to pass. The out meaning, it is, as the name suggests, after the execution is complete, suppose you want to take some data from here, right? Let's say you have a download data. There is a data set you have to download. After the download is done, you have to send that entire report back to the user, or maybe send success. The email is sent. You want to validate if email is really sent successfully or failed. If it is success, you send the parameter success, or send the parameters failed. Then you can take a decision, right? So that is how you can define through out parameter. After the execution is done, you can send the data back to the out, right? So next is in and out. Let's say you're maintaining a flag, and that flag you want to keep changing. There's an increment variable, you have to keep changing. It's kind of global variable, right? Your global variable is created, and you want to make sure that is while you have to pass it the updated value, and the value got changed, you also take it back. So that's called in and out direction. So while you're creating these arguments, you have to take care about this particular parameter. Let's see where it is, right? So let's say here is the my YAML file. While you create this variable, we have also an option called arguments. So when you create an argument, let's say I'll say input name. This is my argument, right? Then I say this is the direction. Here you can define in, out, in, and out. So if it is in, this takes the input. If it is out, the expectation is it will send the value out. So the who is calling it needs to pass the parameter. In and out is both the direction, right? So that's how we can define the in, out direction. So this is powerful when you break the flow. Otherwise, you will be not able to pass the variables, get the variable. It will not work appropriately. So to understand this is very critical. The next is on the how do you really organize the project, like what we just couple of things I've mentioned. One is design the suitable layout. Like so you start with state machine is like the RE framework is critical. Where you are using sequence, where you are using flowchart, it's also critical, because every time it is not like you create using flowchart. Every time it's not like create using sequence, and same for state machine. Depending on the complexities, you need to take a call and organize the project and define the right layout in a given scenario, right? And while you create it, you can invoke it. That is critical. You can invoke it and then design in an appropriate way. I will show you one sample project as well, so that you get a view. Okay, how do we really create in a real world, in a real scenario, in a project business case? And use exception handling to capture and manage error. It's very critical to manage exceptions. So make sure your project is designed in a way it is like handling any unappropriate scenario. You may not know the bot is running that time. It may encounter some different types of error which you may not have encountered during development. For example, let's say you have a regular page, Chrome is you're using, the page is loading appropriately, but suddenly there is some server down, right? The page may be giving you error like a 500 error, or maybe the 404 error. So different types of error. Is your like these are all different type of exception you can handle it. There are different UiPath activities to validate if my target screen is loaded, to validate if it is really taking more than the expected time. There are the properties called timeout, check state, and all these very critical properties, or retry scope. So all these, if you use, your workflow will be more matured and improved, where you can, where you are really design the bot to take a decision when there is some unwanted situation occur, right? And make the workflow more readable, right? You can give a name called test, ABCD, XYZ, anything. But making a workflow more readable is very important, because when you make it too readable, you're not only just creating for yourself, but also tomorrow, let's say if someone else is enhancing your code, or after a couple of months, you will need to revisit the code to add some change request, because change request is obvious in a project. Today it is working. There is some change may happen in future to the business requirement, to the application. So to yourself to understand the code, you have to really make it readable in the sense of the various parameter, like you have to give meaningful description in the project. You have to create the variable in a meaningful way so that you can understand which variable is for what, define the directions, modularize the code. If I show you one of the sample example, if you go to this RE framework, right, this shows most of the best practice how you really need to follow. See, this is how it gives us a skeleton. Define the project description on the top. More you organize, this shows how mature your code you have designed. Now, if I go inside a sub workflow also, if you see this top of this, it explains what this code does, right? It says, okay, this is how you can really design the code, what exactly this code is doing. And everywhere we have the best practice of adding the log messages, so that while you are debugging in the orchestrator, because every time will not run from studio. While you run from studio, you can validate it, but while you debug it from the orchestrator, you can see where what is happening, right? So this messages go back, and all these variables and arguments are also defined in a way it's well understandable, like the meaningful in that way, right? So you have it saying, okay, in is showing is my in direction, the config file is the meaningful name, out is showing the direction. So all this, while you create all the variables, you make sure you are really designing it, all the workflow, right? You have to make it as a consistent. I have my description explain what this does. I have the variable argument doing in a meaningful way. So everything is called out in that particular skeleton what you really created at the very beginning. So that's why readability is very critical. Next is maintain the security as well. Like, for example, you're dealing with password, which is very common. Any of the project you will be dealing with credentials, some sensitive data. So make sure while you're developing the project, this sensitive management is been done correctly. Otherwise, what will happen is it may lead to some risk, compliance issues, and security challenges and all. Because the project once you develop, let's say you have a username and password, you hard coded inside your project, while it is running, you can also everybody can access it, right? So suppose you share the code, it will be part of hard coding. So anyone can see it. So your password will be compromised. So wherever there is a credential type of thing come into picture, try to use first is UiPath credential vault, that is asset you can use. There are, when you create asset, this ask, okay, is it a password type or a plain text type? So define this as a password type so that others cannot read. And there are also properties like password can be invoked in a particular machine, which machine you want to read the password, other it will not read. So all these configurations are there. And also there are a password type plain text. You don't need to use always string. There are secure strings also you can use, and we use the Windows credential vault and all possible options. So try to take care of all these passwords, because if it is not managed carefully, others can read it. Imagine you, while you're running the project, while you develop the project and publish to orchestrator, that also suppose run executed by someone else, they got access to the code as well, right? The code is kind of unpacked in the real time. It goes to the user machine while it is executing, and from there anyone can read your password or any configuration and all. So it is important to ensure you are really taking care about sensitive data in such a way. It's not only just for password. Suppose tomorrow you are working on a business case which is more financial data, which should not be exposed outside. So how really coded is such a way it's not part of the codes. On runtime it is saved in a particular place and all is maintained. And keep your automation clean. one of the best practice also to like you don't need to really add all unwanted file into the same project. Let's say I have seen some scenarios which is not coded correctly. Is I will load all the video files to my project, all my project documents to the same project. So what will happen is when you publish the project to the orchestrator, it will increase the size, right? The project size will goes to MBs, whereas your actual code in few KBs. Because you make unwanted file into the project, while you are executing this, it takes a lot of time, right? It will, while you're running in a real world production scenario, it will take a lot of time to download and execute because you have unwanted files saved. So as a best practice, always keep your code, the project module clean. It's only dealing with the workflows, the logic, and the associated files which is related to workflow, not anything outside that. So keep it clean, keep it like it ideal scenario is the if you really make it clean and structured, it should be in some KBs. It will never go to like a lot of sites. So if it is in few KBs, then imagine while it is running, it is very faster, right? Okay, so the last part, this is my last module to say how do you really check the code quality. Then I'll open for some question. So there are a few things we have learned. That is, one is modularity. Keep this as one of the ingredient. Break the flow, make it to reusable, make it to smaller module. So that is key. Maintainability, so good structure, development standard. I just said the RE framework based development. Make it readable, make it flexible so that it can run in any environment. It's not designed to develop and run in your development machine, but it can run in any environment. So that's why you have to take care of some of the files is written from assets, and nothing is hard coded. So all this is important. Reliability is important. That's where you manage the exception, error handling, real time progress, and all is there. And then you are really extendability, right? So where your new use cases can be incorporated, change requests can be accommodated, so that your code is, oh no, we cannot accommodate change requests. So any change, the code is designed in a way that if you take care of the modularity, this becomes pretty easy, right? All right. So with that, I'll open for any question. So maybe Abhijit, if there is any pre-submitted question, please free to.
Thank you, Shishira, for that. I can see a couple of people has put few things here. Dr. Nagapan, who's the HOD, CSE, SEC Chennai, he's put sequence, but I'm not able to understand what is.
Oh no, there was a quiz I asked in the middle.
Oh,
Maybe you have answered that. This answer is correct. Sequence is right. Yeah, there was a quiz.
so please feel free to type in your questions if you have one, and we'll be happy to answer that. Please use the Q&A and post your questions here. So I get one of that. Where do we find the UiPath Studio?
All right. So if you want to install UiPath Studio, so you can easy place to go is cloud.uipath.com. This is the orchestrator. You can sign up for a free account there, like community account. Sign up. Once you are there, in the top you get the resources. Under the resources, you get the download all UiPath packages. Studio is one of that. You can download the community version there. You can install it. It will ask you for sign up. Just sign in with the same credential where you created the account. So, and not only just Studio, you can install any other UiPath product like Assistant, Task Capture, and all others. It's placed in one place. The resources tab is the solution for you. So, create a cloud account, cloud.uipath.com with community account, and then from there, go to resources to find it.
So I have a few more questions which has come our way. Can you show a project demonstration by executing?
Okay, so I can show that. So let's go back to our one of the simple scenario I'll create. So it will helpful for everybody. I understand the audience is new. So let's go. I'll create a simple hello world, which is the best popular for any of our project, right? So let's say I'll create a simple project called hello world. Okay, I'll say anything. Okay, so when you create, what it does is it's basically creating the project structure. It has some dependencies like any other programming language. We have a main.yaml. This is where we start. By default, if you understood, this is a sequence, right? If you see this is a sequence, by default, create a sequence. Now, how to develop it? You have a lot of activities here. See, there are a bunch of activity which is nothing but mimicking my action. Let's say as a mimicking action, I want to do an input. Let's say I want to take input. Dialog input is this name. Input label, I'll say what is my name? What is your name? And then the value will go to input node. So what I did, I put a dialog box which is like mimicking action to ask somebody the input. Anytime you put activity, set the properties. Once you set the property, what it says is I asking some dialog, asking user to enter some text, which is a text box type, and then the value will go to input. Now here I want to message them as a hello world, right? So that's why I'll use a message box. You can select activity from here or go to stop and search it. So message box come. Like I said, anytime you drag activity, fit the properties. The property says type the text to print. So we'll say text is hello, and then I'll just say my name. String concatenation, use plus symbol. This is a string plus string. This become another string. So simple. So now to execute, I have this option run, debug and run. Run file is running the same file. Debug is your testing it, and run will run always from main file. So I just run it. Now my file is getting compiled. It will bring what is your name, the dialog box. I'll say Chirag. Click OK. Now what will happen is the input goes to my input name. Now the message box will print in terms of what is the hello my name, right? So it's it should come here. See, done. Execution output is printed. First time execution it took some time, but next time it is compiled and run. This is simple. From here you can start thinking of creating any complex scenarios, right?
Thank you, Shishra, for that. I think the next question is for me, how much duration to complete the UiPath challenge? So I will tell you the time duration. Right now, we have started the prelims wherein colleges will come and register, and then you guys will do learning plan. You will finish that learning plan. Then we will conduct a evaluation, and then from that select a bunch of people from that. Then is the regional, which will start. That's probably in the first week of, and that will end with an ideation hackathon by, say, 10th September. And the nationals will start during 30th, start probably from 30th of September, and will end with the grand finale by, say, October 15th. That's a date which we are looking forward to do this grand finale. So to answer your question, probably we will end this challenge by mid of October 2024. And we have more questions coming our way. Uh, which class students are expected to do this challenge of UiPath, and is it for faculty members also? Can we get registered candidates progress? This particular, yes, it will be for the students, and we have defined what is going to be a team. That will be 4 students plus a faculty. Faculty will work hand in hand with the students, guide them, mentor them. So that's how it will go further. And then the other question is, how is different from other UI automation tools, example Selenium and Tosca?
Tosca. All right, so I can take that. So Selenium Tosca is mostly for test automation, right? Your test script, there's a project people created is for test script, test automation and all. But when you come for a business problem, right? When you see business world, it is not test, it is the real world, right? It's a process. So we are speaking about process automation here, not test. So while you use process, there are multiple things needs to come together. Like input is coming, there's one task submodule where the inputs are captured, invoice is downloaded. Then the other module is maybe you're doing to S4 or any other ERP, processing it. Then you're going back to the result, the payment is just a process. The end-to-end business process, and not a Selenium or Tosca kind of test case solution. It's a business process automation. That's where the UiPath is different. Selenium and Tosca is mostly for testing world.
Thank you, Shishira. The next question, I will take it up. What type of projects are participants expected to work on? So initially, you'll have to go through a learning plan. You will finish that learning plan, and then we will introduce the problem statements to you. And those are the problem statements which you will have to work on to complete this challenge. I'll take a couple of more questions. Can it be connected with all database? I think, Shishira, you can.
Yeah. It can connect to. It's a very platform independent technology. It can connect to UI. It can connect to API. It can connect to any of the database. You can connect through API or the database connector. So all this is possible through UiPath.
Okay. Then interesting question. What's the next session and will be about? So we are planning to host the next session by the next Friday. So that is we will announce the topic. Let me see if I can give you that. Probably that will be on orchestrator overview, which will cover what is an orchestrator, how can it be assessed, what are the type of licenses in that. Then we will try and help you guys with the demo, which will be easy to understand and look at. That's going to be the next session. What is the next question? So session was excellent. Thank you so much. Please share the details for students on how to start learning. So I will share the link which is required, which you will be able to see all the details of this challenge. Let me just pick it up. So I have given you the website address where you can see all the details about UiPath Apps Academic Challenge 2024. Most of your questions will be answered there. Shishira, can we take another couple of questions? So I'll take the last question. As final year student, how can I utilize UiPath to build my project? How do I implement this?
Oh, so yeah. So as a final year project, I will like try to find the use cases within your college, right? Process exists everywhere. Within your college also it operates, let's say your admission department, your finance department, your HR department. You can really go to your department, ask, see what they are doing as a manual work, where there is a mundane work, repeated work going on. Let's, for example, admission department. There are requests are coming, they are screening it, saving it to internal ERP, maybe sending some emails. They're all maybe happening manually, right? So, and then processing the files, creating Excel file, downloading here, there, and all. Admission department has a lot. So, try to, as a final year student, start to interact with all your various departments to really see where there is a manual work going on, which is really impacting those users who are working most of their time is getting killed, right? That is where you can really introduce these tools. Say, okay, we'll come up with a use case where you automate this entire process, where the request comes in, the UiPath bot is monitoring the mailbox or any other platform, and then sending acknowledgement automatically, and then creating the entry in the database. And then these are all seamless, and this is a human in loop you're bringing just for the admission department to monitor what's going on and getting a report so that they do the rest of the work. Rest all mundane is done. Same goes to your like the account department or maybe examination department. So you can think of all the department. I'll suggest you try to create a automation for the college, your final year project. So you can think about a college entire UiPath implementation for all the departments to create, taking their manual work out and then really creating a fully automated ecosystem. So that will, if you really create, you will go to industry tomorrow and you can say, okay, this is what I automated in my college, and they can every industry. Today also we do what we do. The example I said, in industry also we go to various departments. Let's say finance, how finance operate, where the transaction is going on, how the invoice is processing. We go to supply chain. We say, okay, how the supply chain is working, when the request comes in, how the order is getting processed. So it will be easy when you go to the industry. You can connect the dots, and your expertise will go to the next level. So yeah, that's how I'll guide for a final project.
Thank you, Shishira, for the detailed explanation. I think uh, we will not take further questions because of the time. So as we come to the end of today's insightful session, I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to Shishira for sharing some valuable expertise and insights on automation project lifecycle and project organization. So your knowledge and experiences provided our participation a solid base, a foundation to excel in the UiPath Apps Academic Challenge this year. So I also want to express our gratitude to the ICT Academy team for the continuous support in empowering students and for the Apps Academic Challenge, which we are hosting right now. Without saying this, I cannot go further. Thank you to all the students who attended today. Thank you for your active participation and for asking so many questions. Your commitment here to learn and to grow in the field of automation is really inspiring, which is giving us the kick to do more in this particular field. And remember, the skills and insights you have gained today are not just for the challenge ahead, but for your future. Like one of the participants asked, how can I utilize this to do my final projects? That's how you need to think. So keep exploring, keep innovating, continue to push the boundaries what automation can achieve. And to give you a point, there are so many use cases which is lying down in the environment which you're sitting, which is your college and universities. And that's the best place to start automation. So if you have any questions or need any further assistance, please feel to reach out to us. I will put my email ID here. You can reach out to the ICT Academy team. We are here to support all your steps forward. So once again, thank you for joining us today. We wish you the best of luck in UiPath Apps Academic Challenge 2024. Stay curious, stay driven, and keep making a difference. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.